Hi, welcome to episode number 129 of the Doctor Podcast Show, and I'm your host, Dr. Robert Cykiert. Please subscribe and follow Doctor Podcasts, and please like, repost, and share this episode. I would really appreciate it, and it'll help me get more terrific guests like we have today. Today's topic and today's show is about longevity and lifespan, or now as it's called, Healthspan, which is a topic everyone is interested in because everyone wants to live forever and stay healthy forever as well. Our guest today is an expert in the topic of longevity. It's Hunter Ziesing. Hunter is the co-founder and head of partnerships at Longevity Health Company, which is based out of San Francisco. Longevity Health specializes in personalized diagnostics, AI-driven insights, which is becoming very popular, and evidence-based longevity programs. They have something called a billionaire bundle, but you don't have to be a billionaire to get it. And it's an annual comprehensive testing and medical support algorithm and process, which Hunter will tell us more about in a few minutes. He's also developing a less expansive AI plan for accessible predictive health, which we'll talk about as well. The core mission of Longevity Health is shifting healthcare from reactive treatment to proactive prevention. We're spending trillions of dollars on reactive treatment, but proactive prevention is much less expensive and much more effective. So, Hunter, thanks for taking the time to join us today from your busy day. Everybody wants to live longer and healthier lives. In the USA, literally trillions of dollars are being spent annually on healthcare. The longevity business is booming with billions of dollars being invested by companies like Google. And recently, people like billionaires Jeff Bezos of Amazon and Sam Altman of OpenAI and ChatGPT are investing a lot of money in starting new companies dealing with longevity. So I really want to thank you for taking the time to join us today.
Thank you as well. You've kind of nailed everything, and need I say more?
All right. Well, I have some very good questions for you, and I hope you can explain this to the audience so they understand what's going on in the longevity world. So tell us about your background, first of all, and how you became interested in longevity-related healthcare.
Sure. For 20 years, I was on Wall Street. I had a very successful career. As I say, I was overpaid, and I was always into health and wellness, cycling, running, helping my friends, find wellness. And right around when I turned 40, I lost my dad in his early 60s to pancreatic cancer.
Mm,
Not necessarily preventable, but he could have prolonged it had he gotten in front of it. I also lost four friends under the age 40 to various infectious diseases. Some were cancer, unavoidable, but they all had fairly long, prolonged periods of unhealthiness. And
mm,
they say, is there a cure for cancer? I don't think so, but we can get in front of various infectious diseases and, prolong our life and prolong our health span. And as you mentioned, reduce costs. So I took a wide out turn and I left Wall Street and I founded the Charity of Choice Foundation benefiting Livestrong. You remember Lance Armstrong?
yes, sure.
So Lance was, a young, avid, aggressive cyclist. My boss was the founder of the U.S. Postal and Discovery team. Lance was
Wow.
coming in the office all the time. I rode with Lance. I'm a bike racer, and he founded Livestrong, and love Lance or not, he did amazing things for cancer survivors by providing them the tools for when you got cancer, when
Right.
you're a survivor, and what you do when you get cancer, and made it very affordable. I focused on cancer funding and cancer research. So I put on large outdoor cycling events and running events all over the country, benefiting Livestrong and Livestrong Cancer Research Centers. So big research centers like Stanford and Palo Alto, Seattle Cancer Alliance, Fred Hutchinson, which was the Nike Cancer Institute. I did that for 17 or 18 years. It was very fulfilling, didn't make much money, but I really enjoyed what I did. And then I left the nonprofit world and I went to work for a company called Paceline. Paceline is a company that had over 1 million downloads in over 2 years. You wear a heart monitor. It can be a Garmin, a Fitbit, or an Apple Watch, and it tracks your heart rate and it calculates your elevated heart rate. And each week, you got to 150 minutes of elevated heart rate, which could be just a brisk walk. And that's what the American Cancer Society or the American Heart Association recommends for the healthy, active adult to get 150 minutes of exercise each week. We paid people as little as $1 a week to work out with a Amazon gift cards, and it was wildly successful. What I learned there in that, as I'm taking to this new venture, is that you can change people's behavior with financial and with social elements of health. It's like Facebook groups and things like that. And I did that in fundraising. We created fundraising teams. I'm like, well, why can't we do that for people that want to be more healthy, provide them incentives and tools? So Longevity Health was born. During that time, I studied a lot about health data. I hacked a bit myself in health and testing. My partner, Jesse Levy, the founder of the company and CEO, he had two grandfathers that had heart attacks before the age 50. So
Wow.
when he turned 40, he started hacking into all this functional health medicine, and then Longevity Health was born.
Wow. Long story, very fascinating and interesting. Are you still getting your heart rate up 150 minutes a week?
Yeah, I still use the app, and I ride anywhere from 8 to 9 hours a week on my bike, so I don't have trouble getting to my 150 minutes. And by the way, part of the problem with that app was 90% of the people using it were already exercising,
Right.
right? The 10% that didn't, and that's what we have to go after. But that's something I have a plan for. But yeah, no, I still exercise a lot.
That's great. Yeah, exercise is like the best medicine for everything and the best prevention for everything. I've interviewed doctors in every specialty, and no matter what ails you or what you're trying to prevent, exercise is the key. Now, you mentioned functional medicine a minute ago. Can you tell us what functional medicine is and how it promises root cause solutions rather than symptom management? But some critics say lacks scientific rigor. How do we bridge the credibility gap between functional medicine and the conventional medicine that's been around for decades?
Great question. And we are not a functional medicine company. And there is a lot of controversy over functional medicine. I call it test du jour. Take a
Mhm.
test, take a blood test, get supplements, right? Um, the I don't think there's one particular functional test that fits all. I think you need to use the combination of a variety of data with some of these new functional tests, largely, unfortunately, that are not reimbursed by insurance, but that's going to be changing. I
Right.
think you really need to look at a longitudinal set of data based on you, not Hunter, not Susan Jones. What is specific to you? Why are you doing this? What you need to do based on your own biological profile and tests, and then how to go about it. So I think longitudinal data is critical.
Right. Now, drawing from your work at Longevity Health, what specific diagnostic tools or protocols have you seen successfully integrate the various approaches with evidence-based conventional practices to build trust among skeptics and make people healthier?
That's a really good question. So we have this product right now. We're in a three-phase approach to making longevity affordable for the masses. Phase one is what we call the billionaire bundle. It's probably not the best name in the world because people look at it and go, I'm not a billionaire. But
Right.
we do a series of tests. We charge $11,000 a year. Every patient gets a full medical board, executive medical board, we call it, including a physician, dietitian, an exercise physiologist, and a clinician. And we first have a conversation with you. What is it why are you doing this? And then the next is what? And we do 6 tests. We do a comprehensive blood test, a DEXA scan for bone density and visceral fat. We do a gut test, a sleep study, a glucose monitor, and I'm missing one. There's one more. And then in some cases, depending on the patient, because remember, we start with why, we'll do genomic testing and any other test that is applicable to that patient. Then we develop, the how. What are the things you need to do? And then finally, what you have to do. So we develop a plan for those individuals, and then we retest each quarter. Not every test, but largely blood tests, DEXA scan, we'll do every quarter. And then we'll monitor progress. And we actually give every patient a Slack channel so they can communicate with the doctor, like you might with, NYU or UCSF with your doctor, but it's instant. And we kind of hold you accountable to take action to improve your health span. And then that's again, it's $11,000 a year. It's not affordable for everybody, but it compares to a $30,000 bricks and mortar clinic, which is a lot of doctors like you are doing these wonderful clinics, but they're expensive because you have a facility. And the you can go to Peter Attia and spend 150,000.
Right. So this is much more affordable
But
than,
and on the tests, those are the tests that we're focused on. But the great thing about all these new tests coming into the marketplace is there's more and more and more. There's more wearable devices. We'll look at all of them, but right now we purely focus on those tests. We look at your medical records as well. But as you know, as a doctor, medical records are largely dark, scattered, and historical. So we're more focused on current data.
right. Can you give us an example of an early win that you've observed in a patient or some patients where you this?
Sure, I'll just, and there's a couple studies on our website. I'll just talk about myself. I'm in my early 60s. I've been healthy my whole life. Um, I haven't been to a physician in many, many, many years. So I decided, obviously, with this company to go through the program. And I've done a various testing, but not to the level I did with Longevity Health. And I discovered I was very vitamin D deficient. Previously, I'd gotten a blood test, um, and from a blood test company, I don't want to mention their name, but they tried to sell me lots of supplements and testosterone injections, which I've since reversed or increased my testosterone through weightlifting. My bone density was way out of whack. Being a cyclist my whole life, I've never, lifted weights. My upper body was very not weak, but I look for someone to help me put my bag in the overhead on the airplane. And there's a few other things that came up in my blood test. My creatine was really low, and so I've been on the program 6 months, and I've retested since, and I've made significant improvement. No major milestones like I've avoided cancer, but we've had a couple of other patients that had some major red flags that they addressed, and we won't know what that outcome is for a couple of years because we've only been doing this for 2 years. But
Right.
importantly, most of our patients, we've changed their behavior.
Yeah, that's critical. Now, as you know, and as you just mentioned, there's been an explosion of longevity products. There's supplements, there's tests, there are biohacking tools, but the average consumer seems kind of confused. I know my patients ask me about this occasionally, and I have difficulty telling them what's real and what's just a lot of hype and what they should be spending their money on and what's worthless. How do you help people distinguish real innovation from marketing hype? That seems to be a big problem in this.
It's a real challenge, and it's a double-edged sword. All this money being raised in longevity, these blood test companies have created a lot of awareness
Right,
for the space. But as you said, a lot of people coming to us have taken these tests and they don't really know what to do with the information, or they're being sold products, more peptides or more supplements. Not that they're necessarily bad, but we often reduce the amount of supplements that people take. So it is a real problem. There's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of product offerings out there, and that's kind of what we're aiming to change. The problem is we asked people to get more tests. You can go get a $500 blood test at Function Health. They test 150 biomarkers. They do a wonderful job. They give you a concierge. I've been through their program, but it kind of stops there. And then a lot of these companies get you in the house and then they try to upsell you on additional tests. We
right,
will never make money off the test. So a blood test, if in our AI product, which will eventually be $10 a month, we'll sell you every test it costs. So we can get a blood test for $90. We can get a glucose monitor for $15 for 2 weeks, right? We can get a genomics test now for under $800. But some of these companies are charging $600 for these blood tests, or $3,000 to $4,000 for genomics tests. But importantly, and I'll show you later on this call that we do with the doctor, but we can do with AI. We can interview you and figure out what specific tests that you most likely need. And then ultimately, we need to change reimbursement so that people or companies will pay for these tests. And that's something that we're going to do in a pilot.
right. Now, you mentioned doctor. Do you work with several different doctors in different locations, or how's that done?
We have 5 physicians. We're in 5 states right now. We'll eventually be in all states, but we're largely in California, Florida, Connecticut, and Texas, and New York, of course. And we have a physician in each state.
I see. So that physician oversees everything and makes sure that everything is done properly and that the tests are interpreted correctly, right?
Correct. And our next version is going to be $100 a month that we're testing right now. I can show it to you. That we use AI that takes a lot of heavy lifting away from the physician, and it also does incredible analysis on the data.
Right. Now, I've noticed you didn't mention MRI scans. I see a lot of these longevity centers are now doing total body MRI scans on people. What do you think of that? And is that valuable?
I would divert more to our physicians on that, but we feel we get a lot of information for a lot less money out of a DEXA scan, visceral fat and bone density. Some of our patients are doing MRIs. I haven't, so I'm not that adverse to it. I know they're a lot more expensive, and you do get more data. And you might have an opinion yourself.
Well, it will pick up certain tumors. For example, you mentioned pancreatic cancer, but the question is, how many MRI scans do you need to do before you pick up one patient? Of course, for that patient, it's invaluable, but the other 100 or 200 scans may not pick up anything and are very expensive. So we have to consider the cost effectiveness of these tests, and it's not easy to answer that. So I
Yeah,
don't.
I mean, I was just chatting with our chat agent the other day about a knee injury that I had, and it recommended that I get an MRI. I haven't done it yet, but I think it goes back to the why. And if somebody is predisposed towards something or has some issue that an MRI would pick up on, absolutely.
Right. Yeah, I run a lot actually, and occasionally I get these aches and pains, and if they last for a long time, I start thinking maybe I should get an MRI. But usually just some rest and cutting back on the mileage helps, and then I can avoid the scan if possible. Now, I want to ask you, one of the most common proponents now of this is Brian Johnson and his Blueprint program. He's gained huge attention. I see him all over the internet and on TV and on cable. He's got an extreme data-driven anti-aging protocol with $2 million personal regimens, celebrity-backed funding, and consumer products like various longevity mixes. How does your program, Longevity Health, differentiate itself from Blueprint in terms of evidence-based personalization, AI integration, and making longevity accessible? And what lessons do you think we're learning from Brian Johnson?
No question, celebrities. He just raised $60 million last week from individuals.
Really?
And I
Wow.
know he has a supplements, a powder company. He also has Eternal Life, which is a brain health. It's a device you put on your head. It measures your brain waves and your age, and they're getting more into that. We're actually testing it for him right now. He's a wonderful guy. I think some of his stuff is a little bit way out. Injecting himself online. I guess he was doing the other day. He's somewhat controversial. So, how do we differentiate? I don't know what kind of testing they're doing in their protocols. I don't know enough about Blueprint to really fully answer that question as to what they're doing different. I can tell you what we are doing different from all these other functional testing companies is
Yep.
using longitudinal data. I don't know what Brian's up to or what he's going to do with all this money. But he's definitely has his share of controversy in the marketplace.
Right. Seems like the controversy, though, and the extreme things he does allows him to raise all these tens of millions of dollars. If you just go with the standard stuff, it's difficult to get investors to pile money on, you know?
Yeah, and it's all too easy for entrepreneurs to sell investors the dream because it helps you raise money, and it's a tough road to go down. I've seen a lot of companies in this space that I think are questionable as to whether they'll ever make any money. I don't know how you can sell a $90 blood test for $500 and make money. I guess maybe you can make money, but consumers are going to benefit because pricing for these testing companies are falling significantly.
Yeah. Maybe he's going after very wealthy people who can afford this, but the average person out there obviously can't afford that
Yes and no. He sells some great supplements and products that are fairly affordable.
as well. So he's covering everything. What about Sinclair from Harvard? He's come up with various longevity products over the years. Some of them have failed, like the resveratrol, and now he's into some other things, but he also gets a lot of investors and millions of dollars.
Yeah, haven't followed him closely, but again, these functional products coming into the marketplace, somewhat, not to shoot them down, but it feels a little bit like diet du jour. In my lifetime, there's probably been 12 diets. And
Right.
then, it's good for you until it's not, and there's something that new that comes along. And I just think, look, individuals have to look at everything, try things, but don't just, wake up tomorrow and say, I need peptides because Brian Johnson says I need to shoot myself up with peptides.
Right. So you have to investigate it, but it's still kind of difficult for the average person to do that. Now, you mentioned earlier that you're developing I believe, a $10 a month longevity AI tool. Can you tell us about that, what that's going to do? That's obviously something most consumers can afford. What does it do?
So what we're testing right now is a version of AI plus human in the loop. And I'll demonstrate it for you right now. I'm gonna call it. So I've already had lots of interviews with our AI doctor. It's called Jesse, and I've downloaded all of my tests that I mentioned that I've had done into the platform. Eventually, it'll do it for you when you get a test. So I'm
Mhm.
just going to give it a call right now and ask it a question about my recent blood test.
Okay, sounds great. Jesse, huh?
Hello, this is Jesse from Longevity Health. How have things been going for you?
Pretty good. My knee is still bugging me a little bit. Let me know if you think I should get that MRI after all. And just quickly summarize my latest DEXA scan results for me.
It sounds like you're dealing with some persistent knee discomfort and you're wondering about an MRI. I can definitely help with that and also give you a quick summary of your latest DEXA scan. Regarding your DEXA scan from July 11th, 2025, the report shows that your body composition and bone density are generally reassuring. Your BMI is 24.4 and your total body fat percentage is 24.7%, both within the normal range. Your bone mineral density is also within normal parameters and there's no increased fracture risk. Overall, it indicates a healthy profile for your age. However, it did note a slightly low appendicular lean mass index of 7.95 kilograms per meter squared and an estimated visceral adipose tissue of about 0.99 pounds, which suggests
That's great.
Muscle building.
That's great. How do I address my visceral fat?
It's a great question, and it's something we definitely want to address. Your DEXA scan showed your visceral adipose tissue at about 0.99 pounds, and our goal is to get that under 0.5 pounds. To tackle visceral fat, we'll focus on a combination of nutritional strategies and exercise, which are already part of your plan.
That's great. That's great. I got to jump on another call, but could you email that to me in my plan? Thanks.
Absolutely, Hunter. I'll make sure to send.
So in any minute, I'll get an email with a plan from the AI agent as to how to address that.
Wow.
So that's $100 a month. It doesn't come with testing, but it comes with a physician. We're testing different plans that are slightly more expensive that include tests. And that's phase 2. And phase 3 is $10 a month. You'll pay for your own tests, a la carte. You can download tests that you've already had done, all your medical records. We use Healthy, which is on an AWS server that stores all your stuff securely. And if you eventually we'll tie in all these partnerships around the country for testing. So if you want to test in New York, you want them to come to your house for your blood test, or you want to go to LabCorp, you'll get the test. It'll automatically load into your account for longevity with a plan and a recommendation. When you retest, it'll compare the old test from the new test. And then, really when we build this thing out, we'll build in all kinds of, plans, incentives, coaching. If we don't do our own coaching, we'll link you, to service providers specific to your needs or your geography. And then finally, this is the $1 trillion company, and we have 1 billion people on this platform, and your company's paying for it. It will layer in HSA plan for, paying for the tests that you need. And then finally, my dream is to layer in gamification. So you can give everybody all these tools and they don't do anything with it. As I told you, Paceline, the healthy people are using it. We need to change behavior by providing social determinants of health and financial incentives to follow your plan. And a lot of following your plan is not just, hey, you got to go do this. It's reminding you, giving you gentle, you'll have a check engine light on it. Hey, Robert, you're not acting very well in the last 2 weeks. We noticed you've been traveling abroad. We know you ate like crap. Or we noticed you've booked a trip to Latin America, here's what to avoid based on your diet. Or you walk into a Whole Foods and it gives you a menu plan based on your diet and incentives from Whole Foods, discounts to behave better. You drive by McDonald's and the check engine light goes off and say, no, 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 no. Joe's Seafood down the street is offering 50% off a healthy diet for your family, that kind of stuff. And then finally you can do social stuff. So I wouldn't rule out a future partnership with Meta where we create, or Strava, where we create health challenges for people. So women of Lower Manhattan with osteoporosis, out running and lifting weights in the park together, health challenges to change
Like that.
behavior.
Right. So you find that monetary rewards help people to do the right thing with regard to their health?
More so social elements than monetary rewards. And it's a huge problem because a lot of companies give out great benefits, but they're kind of one size fits all. Go work for GE, you get uh, a gym pass, a blood test, and maybe a subscription to Calm. Well, Hunter doesn't need to meditate, right?
Okay.
Hunter doesn't need a gym subscription, right? So there's other things that I need. And that's the idea, is to get companies to say, listen, we can tell you which employees need what. And we think companies will be more willing to pay for things, or insurance companies for that matter, when we can isolate through longitudinal data what is right for each individual. Then, yes, the companies will provide financial incentives, but the real incentives I found through running a large fundraising entity and at Paceline is that the social stuff motivates people.
Interesting. One of the good things about social media.
Yeah.
Right. Now, I'm just curious. We spoke to Dr. Jesse there, and he seemed like a pretty smart AI doctor. But who's overseeing him and making sure that he's saying the right things? Because you mentioned earlier that AI still occasionally hallucinates.
That's an interesting question. And right now, even with the AI and the doctor in the loop, it's still expensive for us because the doctor or clinician has to check everything that
Right.
comes through. They read the correspondence. Um, so I mentioned to you, when the regulatory environment changes and AI gets better, and it will, eventually you can take the doctor somewhat out of the loop.
Right. Right. So when the government feels that AI is not hallucinating anymore or almost never hallucinates, it'll be a different situation.
I think so. There's discussion about doing a beta test ourselves in Israel and Singapore and maybe in Taiwan, which are a little bit more advanced and less risk averse than the U.S. government. I think we're a few years away from the U.S. government. But if you think about this whole thing, you mentioned at the beginning of this call, I don't know what end of life care cost in America, but I know it's in the trillions. People are going to die. Medicare is going to pay for stuff. But if we can get in front of these infectious diseases, we may not prolong life, but we will increase health span, and increased health span is significantly less expensive. So I think over time, the government, insurance companies, and companies are going to come on to this, to helping people change their behavior, because it will reduce costs. So we're close
Right.
to doing a major pilot with a Fortune 100 company, and the CEO said, bottom line, how's this going to save me money? Right? That's what it
Right.
all comes down to, is saving costs.
Right. Now, if AI could analyze someone's full health data set in real time, as you just kind of demonstrated, what one breakthrough feature would you prioritize to make preventive care as routine as checking your phone battery, for example? Are we headed towards Star Trek, where you look at an app on your phone, a longevity app, and it kind of tells you everything and what to do?
I think so. But I think you can tell the horse to drink, but you got to lead it to the water. And I think what I really want to change is, first of all, we need to change beliefs. And by testing, it changes your beliefs. But then we have to get people to take action. And I think with an app, it can be hard on you, or you could change the settings, right? Make it fun, make it entertaining, um, or make it serious. But something to remind you. Like I've been an avid cyclist for 25 years. My best performance in any year racing my bike is when I had a coach, because
Hmm.
the coach held me accountable. My wife has osteoporosis, and she was doing nothing about it until she got a coach. It's only like $10 a month for an internet, you know, coach that gives her a plan and checks in on her, and it's a physical person that checks on her, holds her accountable. I think accountability is going to be key to changing behavior. But first of all, you got to change beliefs. And by looking at stuff, you're going to say, I need to make a change. Then you need to hold people accountable.
Right. So this will be very beneficial, especially for underserved populations. It'll be more effective in getting them to do the right thing with their health.
And I think people want to change. People always say, "Oh, Americans are obese, they're unhealthy, they don't do anything about their health." I disagree with that. I think, in my experience, in all the years I've been in the space, people want to change, but they just don't do anything about it. They go see you once a year, and you tell them everything that's wrong, and then they come back a year later, and they've done very little. So I think people want to change, but they don't have the tools, and they can't afford it. Healthcare is very expensive, and that's
Right.
hopefully changing with all this mess in Washington. But it's a screwed up industry because the insurance companies get paid more for sick patients, particularly end of life care. It took my mom 5 years to die. Um, and she was in a home and paid for by Medicare, and doctors love to see her. Bring her to the doctor, bring her to the doctor. So I think that has to change as well. And reimbursement needs to change.
Right. Now, you mentioned you were overpaid when you were on Wall Street for many years. It sounds to me like you're underpaid now, only $10 for an AI coach that'll improve your health. How are you going to make this profitable?
Well, believe it or not, we're somewhat profitable now because our billionaire bundle generates about $100,000 a month in cash flow. That could probably get to a $10 million business. We'll
Wow.
we'll roll all that money back into development of the AI product. So we'll lose money on AI for a few years. But that's where hopefully if this pilot goes well that I just showed you, and we can show not just proof of concept, but proof of demand that people want this, then we'll go raise capital sometime around the first or second quarter of next year in the range of 5 to $15 million and use that for growth. We'd still operate at a loss for a few years, but if you look at what we've modeled out at $10 a month, and we can make AI increase doctors' ability to still watch AI without costing us what it costs right now. So one doctor can handle thousands of patients,
Right.
whereas right now one doctor can only handle about 100 patients. When the business scales, can become very profitable.
Interesting. So there are a lot of people who are interested in becoming health innovators. What advice would you give people who want to enter into this healthcare business at this time?
Oh, what advice? I would, my advice would be to have a product and a solution that people want and that solves problems.
Right.
And a lot of people are not doing that right now, and they're using money for growth to acquire consumers. It may work. I mean, Amazon, Facebook, all these companies operated for 10 years without making money, and they've acquired hundreds of millions of users and or customers, and they figured out how to make money. My advice is to, again, make a product that people want and that has real solutions.
I think you're right.
And my
Sounds
advice to people, listening to this call, you don't need to spend $11,000. You don't need to spend $100, right? The three things that I'd focus on most for anyone is diet, sleep, and nutrition. And maybe get a couple of tests, get a blood test, try a DEXA scan, throw it into ChatGPT. It's amazing what you'll learn by doing it yourself. You don't need us. You don't need to spend $10 a month. We think people will want to do it because we're going to give them a lot more around it and management and motivation and resources specific to you through our partnerships around the country. But you don't need to go spend all this money to just get started with longevity.
right.
Just don't go to your doctor with a bunch of tests and ask them what to do with it because it's like going to a ski shop with your boots and your bindings and your jacket that you bought on Amazon and saying, "Hey doc, hey ski shop, mount my bindings. Here's $100, and oh, the zipper broke on my jacket. Can you fix it for me?" And they're like, "Get out of my office. I don't know what to do with all this data. I didn't order this stuff, right?"
Right. Right. I think the interesting thing that you mentioned, which is I think key here, is that this will be a coach, a health coach. I think people need a health coach full time. Right now, it's impossible to have that because it's too expensive and it's just impossible to get that done. But if you can have an AI health coach that keeps an eye on you every day and tells you do this, don't do that, reward you for certain things, that's going to make a huge difference.
100% agree. And then, eventually, even when we talk about the replacement of primary care, I sort of see a vision down the road where we are no longer have a physicians group in our practice, but we partner with your local doctors or your specialists, and we open up, but you have all your own data. You could, like your bank account, all your data is yours. It's in one place. It's being analyzed, and it might recommend something, a procedure. And through permissioning, you just open up your app to your doctor to see specific data specific to what that issue. He doesn't see everything. And then the physicians are happy because the patients are organized, they're prepared, and they get paid for what they do best.
That sums it up well. Well, I want to thank you for taking the time to educate us about what's coming ahead in the future. I think you're right on target with this. So I really appreciate your knowledge and expertise that you're sharing with us.
And likewise, thanks for so much for having me on.
Thanks.